So the highly anticipated 2021 NFL draft has come and passed, and this is the beginning of what the Jaguars social media has essentially been calling a new era. And Jaguars did a lot in free agency. They did a whole lot in the NFL draft, having two first round picks, two second round picks, two fourth round picks. This kind of draft capital does not come very often. And with all that said, there are six takeaways I want to share with you guys about this 2021 draft class. My first takeaway is that the Jaguars at pick number 25, it really seems like they wanted an offensive weapon. Going into this draft, I was very, very high on Kadarius Toney. I really thought he was going to be the pick. I really liked his elusiveness and his speed, and just when he gets the ball, he's like a human joystick, essentially. And there was also discussion. A lot of people had Rondale Moore at that spot, Elijah Moore. But when you looked at it, there was really a specific type of wide receiver that we needed. We needed somebody who wasn't necessarily the big kind of body type because the Jaguars already have that. DJ Chark is pretty big. Marvin Jones is pretty big. Those are two big targets as well as Colin Johnson. So all these guys are the 50-50 back shoulder kind of guys, the guys that kind of play outside receiver. And we really only had one slot receiver, and that was Laviska Shenault. So you looked at it and said, man, we really need to get another guy out there that's elusive and can do all this different kind of stuff. But when Toney was taken off the board, it kind of shifted for me. I was looking at, and even before the draft, I was really looking at how things lined up, and I said, look, like it really seems like the value is going to mostly be there on the defense, whether it be a Christian Barmore or whether it be a Travis Merrick. But when it all came down to it, the pick at number 25 was Travis Etienne, and he essentially brings a different element to our offense. All of us were focused on having a player like Travis Etienne, but having that player at wide receiver. We were almost overlooking the fact that, look, we can get that slot type of slash player in a running back. And we also had a huge hole at the third down running back spot. There were arguments made that you cannot pick a running back at number 25 or in the first round at that. And I'm someone who really thinks that, look, you don't draft a running back in the top 10, top 5. But now, once you get outside of it, you look back at it, and Alvin Kamara might have been a third-round pick, but he is deserving of a first-round pick. The same thing with Derrick Henry in the second round. So, really, he brings a different element to the offense, obviously a different skill set. This does not phase James Robinson out of the offense at all. I still think that James Robinson is going to get 15 carries / touches per game, but Travis Etienne is going to be able to come in on a very important down, and that is third down. We were missing that third down running back last year. We got Chris Thompson, but I don't know where Chris Thompson was the whole entire year. And Travis Etienne comes in on the most important down in football. He's also going to be lined up at the slot type of position. And really, Travis Etienne brings a different element to our offense and a type of skill set that really the Jaguars offense does not have. And at that pick, a lot of us, like I said, were focused on wide receiver, but we were pretty much overlooking the fact that we can get that at running back. And for me, I had entertained Travis Etienne a few times, but I never went really deep into it just because it didn't shock me that we picked it, but it was a little bit shocking when we picked him because it's like, whoa, we actually went Travis Etienne at this spot. But like I said, this does not phase out James Robinson for me. And Urban Meyer looked at everything and said, look, this offense really lacked big plays. You know what I mean? Jaguars had like the fewest plays of like 15 or 20 plus yards, and the Jaguars really needed that. And we get that out of Travis Etienne, and it's even a little bit of a plus that he was Trevor Lawrence's teammate in college, and they dominated the ACC together. And the second takeaway I have is that if you combine free agency with what we did in the NFL draft, the Jaguars have gone through an entire defensive back overhaul. When you look at free agency, the Jaguars signed cornerback Shaquille Griffin to a 3-year, $40 million deal. And then we went out and signed safety Rayshon Jenkins to a 4-year, $35 million deal. You couple that with what we did in free agency. At the top of the second round, the Jaguars drafted Tyson Campbell, a cornerback from Georgia. And then at the top of the third round, we drafted safety Andre Cisco, a safety out of Syracuse. So when you look at that, the ideal thing is that all these guys will start week 17 or week 18 for the Jaguars. And if that is true, then that is an 80% defensive back turnover if you include really the 5 defensive back system where essentially 70 to 80% of games are played in the nickel. That's 80% turnover from last year with only CJ Henderson staying. So that is huge. And you also look at it and these guys are all under contract for the very foreseeable future. In 2021, 2022, and 2023, all these 5 guys, including CJ Henderson, will all be under contract. So that is great continuity. And there's the argument out there that about what's more important, defensive line or defensive backs, and that's becoming a real discussion as of late, just with how with how quarterbacks are getting the ball out so quickly. It's all about really cornerbacks being able to guard receivers a lot tighter. So there's a real argument at that. I personally believe that defensive line is more important, but if the other side of the argument is true, I kind of hope it is, because that means that the Jaguars could be in very, very good shape going forward. So that is really huge. A whole entire defensive back overhaul. We all know how bad the defensive back group was last year, and we definitely solidified this unit in 2021 offseason. Now, the third takeaway I have is that the Jaguars might have their left tackle of the future. When the Jaguars locked down Trevor Lawrence, there were 2 types of Jaguar fans out there. There was a fan that was like me that said, man, we got Trevor Lawrence. This is so awesome. I cannot wait to get him and have him in a Jaguars uniform. And then there was a fan out there that said, oh, well, Trevor Lawrence can't do anything if you don't have an offensive line. It's like, yeah, well, no, duh. But the Jaguars satisfied that fan by with the number 45 overall pick in the second round. The Jaguars were able to get left tackle Walker Little out of Stanford, and he has huge upside. The big thing that made him slide in the draft is there's a lot of uncertainty about him, just because he really hasn't played a lot in the past 2 years. In 2019, he was injured the first game of the year, had a knee injury that sidelined the whole entire year. And then in 2020, he opted out. A big thing about that is really the Pac-12 with how they were in and out of the football season and not starting until like November. It was a very weird year in the Pac-12, so you can't really blame anybody for opting out of that. But the Jaguars with Cam Robinson on a franchise tag, after we franchise tagged him, there was a lot of uncertainty. Like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to be able to get a left tackle in, the draft? And we got one. So the ideal thing is that Cam Robinson starts week 1 at left tackle, and then either he plays his way out of the position where he doesn't play very well, and then we replace him with the rookie, or, maybe he gets hurt, which I don't wish on anybody, but it's a very true possibility. But at the end of the day, the Jaguars are in good shape because we are not forced to potentially overpay him because we don't have an offensive tackle. We now have somebody there, and Walker Little can kind of ease into that spot, going forward. So it's very exciting that we got a left tackle. Hopefully he works out, and we got a great player protecting Trevor Lawrence's blind side. The fourth takeaway I have, and this one is kind of interesting, is that no position was drafted twice. And the Jaguars drafted positions in this order: quarterback, running back, cornerback, offensive tackle, safety, defensive tackle, defensive end, tight end, and wide receiver. The only position the Jaguars did not draft was kicker, punter, offensive guard, center, as well as linebacker. So that's a weird takeaway, but it is one of my takeaways. The fifth takeaway I have is that the Jaguars still have a huge hole at tight end. Tight end never really fell to the Jaguars very well. The Jaguars in free agency let a lot of guys, like they didn't want to go out there and spend the big money on Jonnu Smith or Hunter Henry. They let guys like Kyle Rudolph sign to other teams. And the only thing the Jaguars did was get a run blocking tight end and Chris Manhertz. And then the draft came. We didn't draft one until the 5th round with Luke Farrell. But Luke Farrell's been more known as a run blocking tight end as well. He doesn't have a lot of receptions in college. So there's still a big hole at this position. Now, I question how much really Urban Meyer and them prioritize this spot. Maybe they don't see it as a big spot, but I made a whole entire video on this, so I'm not going to harp on the different options. But that is still a thing. And maybe we just have to go in here with the realization that the Jaguars and franchise history, we're just never going to have a tight end, no matter who we have. So maybe we just have to accept that and move forward. Now, the sixth and last takeaway I have is the most important one, and that is that the Jaguars finally have a franchise quarterback. Now, obviously, this is not a lock. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence has not played a single NFL snap and has not even practiced in a Jaguar uniform yet. But we all have very lofty goals and expectations for Trevor Lawrence, but as we should, man, he's the most highly touted quarterback to really ever come out. You get to go back to like Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, but luckily the Jaguars, we've had a lot of bad luck in our franchise's history, but the one year we had the number one overall pick, a guy like Trevor Lawrence comes out and he's going to do great things for our city, man. This guy is already a celebrity. He's bringing in Gatorade endorsements, Adidas endorsements. I am just so excited, and I'm so excited as a fan base that we are all rallying behind this guy. I have very high expectations for him, and it's just such a blessing that we're able to have Trevor Lawrence after all the crap we've gone through with Cody Kessler, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne, Blaine Gabbert. I can go on, but I won't. This is a happy video. So yeah, the Jaguars have their franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, and we're all so excited about him. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence, I am going to be giving away 2 Trevor Lawrence jerseys, 1 to members only and 1 to general subscribers. I'm going to do that toward May 21st when I get my next YouTube paycheck, so I'm going to use those funds to really go out and get the jersey. So look out for an announcement on that. You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at UCF_Jaguar. Like the video if you can, subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and some of your takeaways of the Jaguars draft class. And with all that said, go Jaguars, and I'll see you on my next video. You guys watched the whole video. Really appreciate that. You guys can subscribe to the channel for the best source of Jaguars news on the YouTube platform. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at UCF_Jaguar. And you can become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month for exclusive channel content. Thank you guys, and go Jags.